Hey everyone, Unprofessional here doing a quick little review of sorts, first impressions of the Gulikit KK3 Max controller. This isn't going to be a thorough review of sorts, a professional review. It's literally just going to be me talking about the first thing that comes to mind when it comes to the controller. So I just finished live streaming, and this is the first time I had a full gameplay session with this controller. This is my first impression. First impressions overall, pretty good. I have a very minimal complaints with it. I guess I need to give you a little bit of backstory first, real quick. So this is the controller I've been using for the past year and a half, the Victrix Gambit. I've had to go through a couple of these. It actually looks a little bit dirty here. Shit, I gotta clean that. Sorry, guys. But anyways, long story short, I've really loved this controller. It's been a great controller despite having to replace it twice. I mean, I feel like controllers these days just don't last, which is particularly the case with pretty much every controller, I feel like. Before I got this controller, I had an Xbox Elite Series controller, then Elite Series 2 controller, and then I got fed up of having to replace them. So long story short, ended up trying a bunch of other different controllers. I tried the Fusion Pro controller, didn't like the paddles. The paddles, after a while, felt like they were wearing off. I didn't like the analog sticks either, to be honest with you. Wasn't my favorite controller. I even tried the eSwap Thrustmaster. That is, swear to God, the real name of the product. The cool thing about that is that you can actually swap out the modules. So let's say you had stick drift, you can just replace that module as opposed to essentially replacing the controller as a whole. But that controller was actually very big and very large and just felt very awkward. Personally, just not for my hands. So ended up landing on this baby right here, the Victrix Gambit. And I really love this controller. Honestly, I have really enjoyed it for the past year and a half, and I'm not dropping it by any means. I'm just want to try something new for now. The thing that draws me away from this controller is really the rear paddles. So I use 4 paddles playing any game for FPS purposes anyways. So unfortunately, you can kind of see that it's kind of tight here. So sometimes I do find myself accidentally pressing the wrong button or the wrong trigger. It doesn't happen too often, but it happens often enough that I've noticed it more and more, especially now playing a little bit more X-Define, a little bit faster paced. And the thing about this controller is that you can actually swap this out for just one paddle on each side. There's a different accessory that comes with the controller. You can just swap this out. You can see this is like the eject button here. So I feel like this is a perfect controller for someone that has 2 paddles. I also have the GameSir G7 SE here that I just use for my everyday controller. It has the Hall effect sticks, Hall effect triggers, and has 2 paddles. But for the purposes of FPS gaming, I just do prefer using 4 paddles. I don't have to use any of the face buttons. It's nice. Keep my thumbs on the thumbsticks at all times, essentially. The triggers on this are really good, too, by the way. Like, very clicky, they're hair triggers. You can get them all the way low, or you keep them like a mouse trigger. I've always enjoyed them. Some people say it's too sensitive. And I will admit, in the beginning, it takes a little adjusting to, because every minuscule touch will make it actuate and trigger. So anyways, that's why I use this controller for the longest time, but why I wanted to explore a different controller. Essentially, the rear paddles were just not cutting it for me anymore. So coming back to the Gulikit KK3 Max, what a mouthful of a name. Long story short, the back paddles are actually Elite Series style paddles in a way. They're not exactly the same, but they're pretty close. And so far, I have to say I've really enjoyed using the paddles. I've had people tell me, though, that there's like quality control issues potentially. I think that was more of an issue with the previous generation, not so much with the KK3 Max or Pro. I mean, there's 2 versions of it, but same controller more or less. Yeah, so we'll have to see in terms of durability. Like I said, I haven't really had much luck with controllers lasting 6 months, more than 6 months to a year. I've always had to replace them once the year mark has come, for the most part. I don't think I've had any controller go past the 1-year mark. Besides like stock Xbox controllers, to be honest with you, that I've had just laying around and I don't really use them in the same capacity as an FPS game. But yeah, so rear paddles so far, big improvement from the Victrix Gambit. I mean, you have actual paddles here versus these sort of like half paddle, half buttons. And the other thing that's really cool with this controller is a few other things worth mentioning here. First of all, you have the analog sticks. Oh my God, I forgot to take off my follow banners. My bad, guys. And I just realized the chat's still on the bottom. Anyways, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Yeah, long story short, the Hall effect sticks. So these are very, very smooth. And in fact, when I did the test on the gamepad tester to see if there's any error with them, the axis is like very close to zero. It's like 0.001, 0.00 essentially. I think the highest I've seen it is 0.01. So very, very accurate sticks. Very smooth, very smooth. There's like literally no friction. Something I had to adjust to because I would say that the Vigil's Gambit probably has slightly more tension and resistance. I would say there's a more resistance to it when you pull it. So off the rip, I had to get used to this a little bit more. I found myself maybe overextending a little bit at times. It's not a bad thing by any means. It's just different. Going from Hall effect sticks to no Hall effect sticks. At the end of the day, Hall effect sticks should last longer in theory. So we'll see. And then the triggers here. So there are two, there's like a trigger stop here, if you want to call it that. You put it where the full line is. Essentially, let me show you. I put it there. Of course, I can't do it here on the spot. I was like, okay, there we go. It goes the whole way down. There's a fair bit of resistance there too, so it's kind of a nice feel. And then if you put it like that, it becomes more of a hair trigger. But that's the one thing that I'm not as much of a fan on the Gulikit here compared to the Vigil's Gambit. The Gambit, if you look at it closely, it's very like quick to click and quick to actuate. There's very little actual distance that gets traveled here. For this one to trigger, however, there is a little bit more distance to travel where it actually clicks. Same thing with the other one. A little bit more distance. So it doesn't quite have the same style of hair trigger, I would say. It's more like a mid version of this. That being said, I'm almost willing to take that trade-off, at least for now. It's felt pretty good. I haven't felt like I've been losing gunfights because I haven't been able to like shoot first necessarily. So we'll see. Honestly, for now, I'll take the paddles being superior and the triggers maybe being a little less so. It's nice that it has this option though. So at the very least, I still have some type of trigger stop that's enabled here. And at the end of the day, we'll have to see durability wise how long this actually lasts me if I decide to stick with it. I actually do intend to get a Fly Digi Vader Pro 4 controller just to try that out and see how I feel with it. Because that one actually does have more of a mechanical click. However, the rear buttons don't look that good, which might sway me away, to be honest with you. We'll have to see. I'm not going to go in with too much bias. I've seen some reviews and I kind of know what to expect. I'm going to try to go in there with an open mind, and I will let you know what I feel about it when I do get a chance to try it. But for now, Gulikit, KK3 Max, really enjoying it. Solid controller. Whether there will be some quality control issues down the line, we'll have to wait and see. Once again, I feel like that is unfortunately status quo when it comes to controllers. Whichever controller you get, there are issues, and you should expect to have to replace it at some point in time. But yeah, so far so good. There's no software for this controller. Just one thing I want to mention, there's no software for this controller. All the programming is done on the controller itself. There are instructions for that in the instruction box, and as well as online if you want to find the PDF manual. And I guess one more thing worth mentioning with the controller is that if you are playing on console, do not expect to have this work on console, except for Switch. It actually is compatible with Switch, and compatible with like Android, iOS. It's compatible with PC, but for Xbox, you would need to have a dongle, essentially. So there's like an additional dongle that you have to buy to be able to connect to the console and connect the controller through it, which is super annoying. You would think that with them providing the ability to have it as a Xbox style controller, that you'd be able to just, use it out of the box, but not compatible with Xbox without a dongle. Oh, and when you get this out of the box, by the way, it does come with the Nintendo Switch layout. So it's going to be like BA anyways, they give you replacement keycaps to make it the Xbox layout, which is in my case the preferred layout. And that's all I have to say. The D-pad's all right. Nothing special about the D-pad, I would say. And if you have any questions, just let me know. I mean, the bumpers and triggers feel all right. Like I said, the triggers I would prefer if it was more of a instant click as opposed to having that small little travel time to actuate. But that's going to be a wrap. We'll have to see who emerges victorious here. The Hall effect sticks and the Hall effect trigger are a big selling point here on this one. And then we'll check out the Fly Digi Pro, Vader Pro 4. Such a mouthful, these names, I swear to God. When we get there. Hope you found this useful. And if you have any questions, just let me know. And until next time.